In the name of Allah, the most merciful, the all-knowing. In the previous episode, we witnessed the sacred moment of the first revelation in the Cave of Hira. Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam received the words of Allah through the angel Jibreel, and his heart was set on conveying the divine guidance. Khadija radiallahu anha and Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu anhu became the first to recognize the truth, offering unwavering support and faith. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam began the next phase of his mission, quietly inviting those around him to the message, confronting skepticism, ridicule, and the challenge of guiding a society steeped in idolatry. This is the story of early preaching, courage, and the first trials that shaped the foundation of Islam. The Prophet ﷺ began his mission discreetly. He knew that the hearts closest to him needed guidance first, and he approached them with gentleness and wisdom. In these early gatherings, he called them to worship Allah alone, abandon false gods, and live by truth and righteousness, which was the very essence of the message revealed to him. He called young and old, rich and poor, carefully observing their reactions. Some were curious but hesitant, others mocked quietly. The Prophet's approach was never forceful. He spoke of reflection, sincerity, and justice. Among the first to listen were his close relatives and friends. Some hearts were immediately softened by his words, while others listened in quiet reflection, deeply moved yet hesitant to proclaim their belief openly. They observed his truthful, patient, and humble character and quietly recognized the truth of his message. In the bustling streets of Mecca, a young man named Bilal ibn Rabah radiallahu anhu, a slave of Abyssinian origin, began to hear the words of Islam spreading quietly among the people. The message spoke of the oneness of Allah and the equality of all believers before him. Bilal listened with a sincere heart drawn to the truth that he heard from the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. When faith took root in his heart, Bilal embraced Islam with conviction, despite knowing the suffering that awaited him. His master, Umayyah ibn Khalaf, punished him severely, demanding that he renounce his belief. Yet, under the burning sun and the weight of torture, Bilal remained firm, continually affirming the oneness of Allah with unshaken faith. His steadfastness became a powerful symbol of faith and patience. From that moment, Bilal's name became a mark of unwavering devotion to Allah and courage in the face of oppression. Mecca was a busy city, full of people going about their daily lives. Amid this bustle, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam moved with quiet purpose. His mind weighed with the responsibility of the message entrusted to him by Allah. He knew the path ahead would not be easy. Opposition would rise, ridicule would follow, and threats might come from those unwilling to leave their old ways. Yet he was not alone. Abu Talib, his uncle, watched over him with unwavering care. Though Abu Talib had not embraced Islam, he understood the sacred nature of what his nephew carried. Whenever the Prophet called people to worship Allah alone, Abu Talib observed carefully and remained protective. He understood the risks the Prophet faced and the courage required to convey Allah's message. No words were needed for promises of protection. Abu Talib's presence alone became a shield, a silent but powerful support. With Abu Talib's protection, the Prophet was able to call to Allah openly, enduring opposition, ridicule, and threats with patience, sincerity, and trust in Allah. word of the Prophet ﷺ's message began to spread quietly across Mecca. People went about their daily lives, yet some became aware of his call to worship Allah alone and follow the path of righteousness. Reactions varied. Some listened attentively, others hesitated, and some rejected the message. The Prophet moved among his family, friends, and neighbors with patience and composure, conveying the message gently and truthfully. He called people with wisdom and sincerity, encouraging reflection, moral conduct, and devotion to Allah. His message emphasized the oneness of Allah, justice, and compassion, offering guidance to those ready to receive it. The early period of preaching tested both the Prophet's patience and the willingness of the people to accept guidance. Some people quietly accepted the message, moved by the truthfulness and integrity of the Prophet ﷺ, while others rejected it or remained hesitant due to attachment to their previous beliefs or fear of the Quraysh. The Prophet did not push for public declaration, instead allowing the truth to speak through his example and the sincerity of his words. Among his close family and companions, some quietly embraced the message, laying the foundation for the first believers in Islam. The message of Islam soon extended beyond the Prophet ﷺ's closest family and companions. Quietly, it began to spread through the streets of Mecca. Conversations carried fragments of his words, merchants spoke of what they had heard, and travelers passed the message from one gathering to another. The name of Muhammad ﷺ became known among the people, mentioned in homes, markets, and assemblies. To some, the message brought a sense of hope and renewal. It called for the worship of one Creator, truthfulness in speech, fairness in trade, and kindness toward others. It reminded them that wealth and lineage held no worth before Allah except through righteousness. But for others, the call stirred unease and fear. The Quraysh leaders began to sense that their long-held customs and the idol worship that supported their influence were being challenged. The Prophet ﷺ did not seek dispute or confrontation. He continued to convey the message of Allah with calm determination, showing patience when mocked and responding to hostility with reason and mercy. His character, honesty, and steadfastness became a living example of the very faith he preached. As days passed, quiet acceptance began to take root in more hearts. The early believers grew in number, still worshiping in private, yet their unity and devotion could not go unnoticed. The people of Mecca began to whisper among themselves, wondering what change was coming. What had begun in silence was now stirring openly. The city that once ignored his message was beginning to turn its gaze toward him, and the first signs of open resistance were beginning to form. The early preaching in Mecca was not marked by grandeur or numbers, but by courage, patience, and unwavering trust in Allah. Each private conversation, each quiet conversion, and each act of perseverance became a foundation for the growth of Islam. In the next episode, we will witness the first followers formally embracing Islam, facing the challenges of disbelief and persecution, and the emergence of a community bound by faith and conviction. Thank you for joining us in this sacred journey. Stay with us as we continue uncovering the life and legacy of our Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. May Allah guide our hearts to love him and follow his path.